plastic knife and cut it,
Why plastic?
because we don't use metal on tzitzis. That's
Oh,
why.
then I don't have to go-
Is it
I'm sorry.
working this time? We got
Then you have to-
a load of complaints.
Then you
Huh?
have to-
The volume was low for some reason.
Oh.
This side a little bit.
I'm sorry.
About that conversation, and it's
Up
too,
this side a little bit more.
it's too far in advance, and not a bit where the birds may be next week.
Then I started putting Gnisa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Especially given that there's going to be all this.
Guys, we have a lot of work to do. We are in our pre-Pesach class, so first we want to wish everyone, before we begin, this is the blessing we're going to need before we begin. Thank you. So we should all have a kosher and happy Pesach. Usually the Pesach is more kosher and more happy before I start the set of shir, because you know less to be careful about, that something wasn't kosher. But but in truth, this will make it hopefully more kosher and more happy at the same time, God willing. So that's our prayer before beginning. I don't know how many series we're going to have. We have 2 at least before, right today and next week before Nisan, and then when Nisan enters, we'll get at least 1, hopefully, maybe 2, we'll have to see to get in. So right now what we're going to do for tonight, again, we don't expect us to review everything, there's just not enough time, so everyone is encouraged to get themselves a copy. Okay. Or if you need to, you can use the online version. We have the whole book online on the website for free. You can just go on and learn the halachas over there. But we're going to try to cover a number of subjects in both our Sunday class. We already started on Sunday. We're up to Taf Lamed Aleph, and we're going to cover subjects today as well. So today's subject, we're going to go through basically the month of, not the month of Nisan, but the laws that apply 30 days before, and which is in the first chapter of this book. And that was really relevant to chapter 429, which we did on Sunday, but I said I'm going to save all the outside material for today, so this is where we are doing it. So, we did this already on Sunday, the most basic halacha, which is that every individual has an obligation to study and become an expert in the laws of Pesach, starting 30 days beforehand. And that halacha, which is based on the Talmud, teaches us that starting 30 days before Pesach is already a certain, the Pesach air is already in the air. How do we say it? Okay, the vibes are already in there, not just from a perspective of anxiety or of, for at least the woman, the women who have to get worried about how they're cleaning, but from also a holiness perspective, a kedusha perspective. 30 days before, we're already within a certain Pesach mode. In other words, in simple terms, it's already Pesach, starting from Purim, it's already Pesach regarding certain matters. Obviously not regarding Nadin Yicham, it's regarding certain matters, such as, number 1, learning the laws, right? That's the halacha we don't find in other places, starting 30 days before we start learning the halachas. Number 2, so we're going to go through now a whole bunch of different things that are mentioned that we try to do within the 30-day span, or that are applicable within the 30 days before Pesach. And after we're done all these halachas, what I want to do is go through chapter 7 and 8 in the book, which is basically a kosher for Pesach products, foods, kitnius, and chumras, and Pesach chumras. So that's something we really want to cover this year. We haven't been able to touch upon that in previous years. Okay, so let's begin. It's brought down in the Paiskin, the Alter Rebbe records it in the Shulchan Aruch, and likewise the Mishnah Brura, that starting 30 days before Pesach, we begin avoiding getting chametz in different places, sticky chametz. We avoid getting sticky chametz. Now, if we don't bake, then we really don't have to worry about this too much, because what chametz are we dealing with that's sticky? But definitely the women and the children who bake, the bake challahs, bake cookies, whatever it is, starting from 30 days, starting from Purim, okay, they have to be extra careful not to walk around the house with the baked goods, not to get, even if... It's a good point. So, so even if a person will say, well, I'm anyways cleaning the house for Pesach, the Chachamim said no. Anything that can get stuck, that's difficult to clean, then we need to lechatchila avoid it. And we don't say, well, anyways, I'm going to clean up. It's like a woman saying, what's the point of me cleaning up? If anyways my kid is going to come home with chocolate cake and get crumbs everywhere, what's the point of me cleaning up? You have to do your shtadlus. You do your part, Hashem does his. I'll bring out this point we mentioned in the Sunday's class, but we didn't paraphrase it this way, and that is that the mitzvah is do the best you can to get rid of the physical and spiritual chametz. The mitzvah is not, you have to guarantee there's no chametz in your possession. Literally, the mitzvah is do everything you can to get rid of it. We already mentioned the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, that if you did everything you can and you missed, you're not held accountable. You're good.
I'm getting neurotic about it. Let's make a bumper sticker.
But there is one halacha, we talk about this every year. I hope you're all bored about this, Baruch Hashem, that we're discussing this again, because when I first started talking about it, nobody really talked about it, and now it's becoming more popular, thanks to the one above, and that is regarding Play-Doh. We've mentioned many, many times that Play-Doh, D-O-H company, okay, is flour, water, and food coloring. That's all it is, and some salt. So it is 100% absolute chametz, and what is Play-Doh? It's like it's similar to silly putty, to plastilina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they have here. They have in Sfas a Play-Doh. They may, I don't know, maybe it's Play-Doh, but maybe it's something else. No, a store that they sell. They sell like different sculptures, which is itself a problem. Sculptures? No, it's sculptures. They sell sculptures. Okay, that's an issue in and of itself. But in any event. So anything that's made of dough, okay, is chametz. I mean, that's what chametz is. Chametz is dough that wasn't baked within 18 to 24 minutes. That's the definition. That's a scientific definition of chametz and the halachic definition of chametz. So Play-Doh is absolutely chametz, and of course, we either have to get it out of the house before Pesach begins, before the end of time of owning chametz, which is the 5th hour of the day of Erev Pesach, or to include it in the sale to the guy. That's also not a problem. You can put it in the closet, but it has to be sold. And the most important thing here is regarding if we have kids or grandkids. Sometimes they can come home and come to our Seder table and bring out an arts and crafts they did at school. And for some reason, people don't know this. And they make arts and crafts with Play-Doh, and they put it on their table. They made their Play-Doh kais for the Dalit kaisis, and they made a Play-Doh matzah and a Play-Doh lettuce. And here we are eating chametz on Pesach. Seeing chametz, owning chametz, and crumbs. If crumb gets somewhere and a person eats it, he's eating chametz. It's mamish chametz.
Is it edible?
Absolutely. They legally have to make it edible because they don't want lawsuits, because it is the most consumed kid toy on the planet according to their stats. I'm quoting from the Hasbro company. Maybe that's just a public relations stunt, but I'm just saying what they have on their website. And that's what they say. That's why they make it kid-friendly, that it can be eaten and nothing will happen. They said in order for you to need to be hospitalized, you have to eat like a huge amount of Play-Doh. Anyway, so it's also eating dough. If you eat a huge amount of dough, you can get a very bad stomachache. Okay, so that's first of all, but... No, actually, Karish, you need to eat a kazayas within achilas pras, which probably you will not do. Also, very likely Play-Doh may be defined as what's called chametz nuksha, which is a more demoted level of chametz, because it's not chametz, it's really edible for proper people. Like, even though it's possible to bake Play-Doh, but most people won't view it as food. Like if someone gave you Play-Doh cookies to eat, you'd probably be put off about it, right? Right, you would. Okay.
Is that a tarot?
It's just, no, but it's not taruvus, it's just flour and water.
Dough.
It's dough, it's flour and water. What taruvus? There's no taruvus. It's not taruvus chametz, it's plain chametz, it's chametz bang. But nonetheless, since it's not really considered, it's baked in a way, it's not really considered a human food, so there's room to argue that maybe it's under the chametz nuksha rule, which would only make it derabbanan. But nonetheless, you still can't own it, you still can't eat it, so everything still applies. And just the question is, if you didn't sell it and you didn't do anything, and now it's already Pesach, what do you do? What do you do with your kids' arts and crafts? They came home with the arts and crafts, and they put it on the Seder table, and then you realize. So because maybe it's chametz nuksha, so then what you should do is that you should wait until after Yantif and burn it without a blessing. You'll explain to the kid, exactly what's going on while you're burning, the arts and crafts. You have to explain to them, or maybe tell them a story about what happened to it, how it went missing. In any event, okay, so that's important for people to know and to spread the word. And as I've heard that Baruch Hashem, there are even Haimisha stores that stop selling Play-Doh 30 days before Pesach. No more. Yatzame Amlai, no more in the storage. Come back after Pesach if you want Play-Doh. You want, we can give you silly putty, we can give you all the other non-chametz ingredient stuff. Another warning that comes from it, but going back to the previous one, and based on what we just learned earlier in the Alter Rebbe, is starting 30 days, we're careful, so kids should be careful, or parents should be careful to supervise children who are playing with Play-Doh. They should not be playing with Play-Doh around the house, starting from Purim. So either give them the non-chametz Play-Doh, or have them be secluded to a very specific area so it doesn't get absolutely everywhere, because it does get absolutely everywhere if you don't, literally everywhere, if you don't be careful. I learned the hard way. These are all from experience. Yes.
Yes, your kids enjoy Play-Doh.
And the floors and the walls, they all have a lovely time. Okay, next. Avoiding getting chametz and svarim. The Aruch HaShulchan writes another warning, and this gives us a little bit matter to be careful starting from 30 days beforehand. And this gives us a little bit of perspective of what the significance of 30 days is. And that is that starting from 30 days, person should be careful not to get crumbs into svarim. So we shouldn't eat over svarim. We shouldn't have svarim brought to tables that we're eating on in order to avoid crumbs getting into it. So a few points here. Point number one is that the significance of the 30 days is that basically elsewhere, we're going to see it soon, there's a rule that we established that if 30 days have passed since a fresh piece of chametz was baked, it's like become nullified. Not always, it's not so clear, but there is some, in some circumstances, that is the amount of time, 30 days. So we don't apply it if I have a piece of bread and 30 days pass, we don't say, oh, so it's not chametz anymore. It may still be chametz, and it depends where it was kept. It was kept in your freezer, it was kept, it was kept sealed. It could be it's still chametz, even though you may not want to eat it. But in certain cases, we do say 30 days actually abolishes the chametz status. So that's why, starting 30 days, we have a lot of these halachas that become applicable regarding being careful. Because, in other words, let's go back like the Play-Doh. So prior to 30 days, why are we not so worried? Because 30 days will pass, and then it could be it'll already become nisht chametz. It'll lose its state of chametz.
All the crumbs in the books.
Point two. Point two we learn from this clearly is that according to the Aruch HaShulchan, basically is implying that crumbs that fall before 30 days you don't have to worry about. Right? That's your observation. You don't have to worry about crumbs. So the truth is that's an incorrect observation, because the correct observation is that even crumbs that fall in within 30 days you don't have to worry about. But he's just saying within 30 days start being careful, and I'll explain why. Throughout the laws of chametz, we've discussed this in previous years. We're going to discuss this again in the Sundays class when we go through the Simanim of Taf Lamed Aleph and onwards. There are two distinct prohibitions that are related but have their own bylaws. One is thou shalt not own, or thou shalt destroy chametz, and the second, thou shalt not eat. Now, while often the former is a protector of the latter, not always is that protector in action, meaning not always do we apply it. So, for example, we say that while in general we don't allow you to own any chametz, you're not allowed to do, you can't do this fraud with exception to these in these cases. You can't do a Ponzi scheme unless you're a bank. Right? I hope you got that in any event. But there's certain things that they gave us a certain leeway that you can actually own chametz, because we don't suspect you'll come to eat it. You won't suspect you're going to come to consume it, and therefore we're going to allow you to own it, and you're actually owning it, but you're not transgressing biblically. So what are those cases? One of those cases are if the chametz is less than a kazais. There's a few conditions, so keep in line with me. There's a few conditions here. The first one is it's less than a kazais. The Torah only forbade biblically to own and the obligation to destroy if it's a kazais and larger, which is, let's just say 27 grams for argument's sake.
The size of an egg?
27 grams, okay, kazais.
Size of an egg?
I just said 27 cc. 30 cc of chametz, that is what the Torah, and there's an afkamina. If you didn't sell your chametz for Pesach, so you're right, there's no guy involved. You didn't buy your chametz, you didn't sell it, and you found a half a packet of biscuits on Pesach. What do? So you have to make sure. So you for sure burn it. If it's chalamayid, you burn it right away. You can't delay a moment. But the question is, so you say a bracha. So that's going to depend on how much. If it's a kazayis that you found, then you're going to say Hashem Shvantzvan al bir chametz. You're going to burn it with a bracha. But if it's not a kazayis, then you burn it without a bracha because you already did bittul, and therefore it's two derabbanans, whatever. So the question is, how do you measure a kazayis?
In case that you didn't sell it, right?
Correct. I said explicitly in case you didn't sell it. So what do you do in the case? So how do you measure it? So it's 30 cc's. You have to take a cup with volume, cc, you crush the chametz, pour it inside, and if it reaches the 30 cc, you know you got your kazayas. People are going to look at you and think you're nuts. This guy's eating chametz on Pesach. What is he doing? But you're measuring it for the bracha. That's what you're trying to do. If it's 30 cc, you're now doing a biblical destruction, and therefore you say a blessing. However, if it's less, it's only the Rabbanan that it's usher to own, and since it's only the Rabbanan, they have the right to say when you need to destroy it, and they have the right to say when you can leave it around the house. So when do they say you don't have to destroy it? If the second condition is fulfilled, and that is if this less than kazayas of chametz was nullified before Pesach in kol chamira v'chamir, meaning you said the bittul, both by night and the next day. We do it twice, right? They cover two different types of chametz. So you did that kol chamira v'chamir properly on time, you understood what you were saying, so you nullified your chametz. And condition 3, it's dirty. So if all those 3 conditions are fulfilled, you may own this less than kazayas piece of chametz. So now, let's now analyze the books.
So it's
Now,
not-
what is the
it's
chance
not
that 30
27,
cc?
It's not 27, excuse me, you said 27 grams.
Right, yeah.
it's
We
not the
usually,
same.
I said, no, I understand. Often, depends how heavy the bread is, but often
So the density-
it will be. I just gave a weight estimate. I'm not going now into, but if you want to be exact, the way to exact do it is what I said with the cc. That's the exact way to do it.
Water volume,
Yes.
water is
exact. Yeah, water.
Volume.
Water's exact,
Only-
yes.
only
It's
water.
only the weight that counts, not the volume.
Huh?
Like some
Ideally,
breads
but
can be very light.
we do with weight. For example, if it says over there that there's 30 grams of crackers, you know for sure you have 30 cc. You have no doubt there's 30 cc there. Okay?
It's dense.
What was the third condition you just said this morning? The third
Yeah,
thing
30
was
grams.
Dirty cc.
But the CC will be 30 grams.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. What if you find
Take a piece of
a half a kazayit in one page of a book and the other half
If you take a piece of
kazayit in
bread,
another
which
page
is
of a
One
book?
second.
Do they add up together?
In measuring matzah, in most matzahs, if you do what I just said, it'll take about 10 grams of matzah, between 10 to 15 grams of matzah, it'll take to fill up 30 cc of a cup.
After crushing it.
Yeah. But it'll be
After
only
crushing.
10 to 15.
If you find
So in other words, 30 grams of matzah is about 60 cc.
Yeah, it's more.
Okay, let's move on. The math is very interesting. It's great. Shiurim, Rav Abba Chaim wrote 4 books on it, but we got to move on with her class. So, bottom line is that in analyzation of the case, we have crumbs in our book. So we all agree that there isn't a 30 cc of a single piece of chametz in our book. I don't think it's possible. Okay, now we have those cool books where there's no pages inside. They make like a hole like to hide the chocolate bar or something for, from the rest of the family. But otherwise, you're not going to find...
Pretty unlikely.
pretty
You
unlikely.
have to be pretty sloppy.
And forget about it.
Sometimes that is kids' books that get pop out,
They'll all be on the same page.
A kid might find
So, yeah, but it doesn't work to be added. It has to be a single piece. Okay, so it's not, for sure you don't have a kazai, so that's out of the way. You did your bittul, you plan on doing it, right? So that's out of the way too. And is it edible? Would a person come to eat it if he saw it on Pesach? If you looked and you saw a piece of, a chocolate-covered wafer, a little crumb over here in between the pages, would you go like this on Pesach and eat it? Instinctively, of course not. Nobody would do such a thing. So because of this, so because the Chum didn't decree. So if so, that's the reason why, even within 30 days, you do not, even if you went ahead and you used the book and crumbs fell within 30 days, minadin, you do not have to check it for chametz. However, because you're allowed to own it, however, obviously you should not bring it to the table. And this would apply even if you did abide by the Aruch HaShulchan's directive and you were very careful not to eat chametz near your books throughout the 30 days. Nonetheless, perhaps the piece of crumb that's still in there did not disintegrate, did not lose its chametz status, and if so, it can fall into your food. And bottom line, we should never bring books to the table on Pesach that we eat on. Even if we're not eating right now, because if we put food on the table in 5 minutes and a crumb fell, we don't realize, but there's full of chametz that's all over the stuff. Another important point I'll bring up is that we've discussed this in the past, is the keyboard. It's imperative. Again, I'm not trying to make a new halacha. It's just common sense. It's just common sense, okay, to get a new keyboard for Pesach, because keyboards have so much chametz inside. And while you can make the argument correctly that there's no issue of owning that chametz, because again, it's not a kazai, is dirty. That's what I'm saying. But the problem is with eating, because you're touching the keyboard, you touch, you're pressing, you're touching the chametz, you touch other foods. It can get into your mouth, so therefore it's a common sense good idea. Even though if someone asks me, weren't Shulchan Aruch does it say you have to buy a new keyboard? I say, it really doesn't say to buy a new keyboard. It talks about keys, it talks about boards, not about keyboards. It doesn't talk about it. Okay? It's before the time of electricity.
What about your iPhone?
No, I don't think there's room for crumbs to fall into the keyboard of an iPhone. It's touch, right? So how did it fall in? But yes, it should be cleaned, 100%. It should be cleaned through. Okay?
Take out can you get yourself a Pesach keyboard like you have a Pesach keli to cook in?
Yeah, that's what I have. I gotta have a cheap Pesach keyboard. Use it every Pesach. That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. I burn it. No, I'm joking.
You burn your keyboard.
I'm joking. It's a new chumrah of the year. New chumrah of the year. So yeah, so that is correct. There is no obligation to check the book, and not only is no obligation, there's also the minhag amongst many was not to check it. Some I discussed it in the book, the different approaches. Some were accustomed to check, but nobody was accustomed to check the way if it was chayiv to be checked, needs to be checked. If it was chayiv, was obligated in checking, then the way you would need to check it is not to do what the people do like this, do. It's like a magic trick, and then boom, everything's done. This is just a game to make the godly soul feel good. It doesn't actually do anything. It's just therapeutic for the Jewish conscience, that's all it is. But it doesn't actually get rid of the chametz. In order to properly do it, and this is the way Chesed Halberstam told me that in the Rebbe's house, they didn't check the books. And this was basically the custom. They didn't check books. Also, Yaakov Lando's home, his son, Shneur Shleim, Chief Rabbi B'nai Brak. His son told me they did not check the books at all, and this was the custom amongst most of Jewry. No one checked books. Some were machmir to do so, but some books, there were few books that the Rebbe wanted to use and have on the table on Pesach. So the Rebbe told Chesed Halberstam Shpak to check them, and he told me how did he check them the way it's supposed to be checked. He said he went through literally. He opened up every single page and he went with a knife, and he had to go like this.
Halberstam did it, or the Rabbi? Or the Rebbe?
A few. It was like 3-4 books that he did this
The
to.
Rebbe did it himself.
No, he did it. The Rebbe told him to do it. The Rebbe asked him to do it before Pesach because those are books he wanted to have
What
around.
about Haggadot that you used last year, and obviously to have matzah?
Matzah is not chametz. Baked dough that is matzah can never become chametz.
In Gebros.
You put water on it. In the book.
Okay.
All the bucking are gonna lose a lot of money. I haven't heard this year now because cows are
Yeah, all these.
How about looking at all the balabatim are going to save a lot of money?
Right.
That's the proper way.
And what
All the balabatim are going to save a lot.
What about the shelves themselves?
The shelves are 100% chayiv to be checked
Yeah.
if you're a person who will not abstain from learning from your books during the year, or perhaps while you're snacking or eating something, you'll take a book from there. But if you're a person who has a huge library and you don't get to all your books, so like half of my library I haven't even looked at, it's like I just go there every Erev Pesach to dust off the dust, then obviously you don't have to check for chametz there, You don't have to worry that maybe a fly carried some of your food to one of the shelves. You don't have to worry about that.
Dust you're not chayiv.
Absolutely not. So again, let's say I have some top shelves with some books that I very rarely use, so I don't have to look there because I don't remember ever bringing chametz there, and I also don't commonly in the middle of a meal climb up the ladder and grab a book from there. So I don't have to worry about that. But all other areas that are within reach, especially if you have kids at home, then everything's within reach. Then you certainly do have to check. Not the books, but around the books. Take out the books, look at the shelf, make sure there's no chametz there. That is certainly an obligation to check based on the areas that the chachamim required.
I don't have a problem now, but I used to have cats, and the cats would take the chametz and they would go into the bookshelves, and I actually had to look a lot more carefully. I don't have any cats right now, but it's an issue if you have pets, then they might store them.
Just send them to look for the chametz.
Take the, yeah, right.
What about mice?
Okay, yeah, but that's but again, even though there is such a suspicion, we don't find that the Chachamim made a requirement of checking based on your animals. So, if you saw the cat bring chametz there, then yes. But if you didn't see, you don't have to actually search for chametz there based on, because with mice, that would apply everywhere. Mice can go anywhere and everywhere, and they can bring chametz anywhere and everywhere. So we have to then check everything? No, the Chacham said either you remembered bringing chametz there, or it's common to go there during meals, or your kids running around with chametz there. Then you have to check. Like a bathroom. A bathroom, adults, we don't bring food into the bathroom, so there's no reason to check a bathroom for chametz. And that's also the minhag, is not to b'dikas chametz into a bathroom. However, if you have kids they don't differentiate. They don't right? They sometimes can bring food, especially if you have the laundry there and you have food inside of the pockets. So then it would have to be checked. So it all depends on the situation and suspicion. Getting back, laundry and ironing starch. So we've discussed this in the past. Another halacha that's regarding the 30 days is recorded is as follows. If the starch being used to iron your clothing is of a kitnius basis, corn starch and the like, it's not a problem. You don't have to worry about it. Even though Ashkenazim don't eat kitnius on Pesach, there's no source for not wearing kitnius on Pesach. There's no problem with wearing kitnius. The only problem is with consuming it. Okay, so there's no problem in having a non-chametz cornstarch. But if a wheat starch is used, and if you send your clothing to a laundromat, you should really make sure beforehand, ask them beforehand, if you're using a starch, what starch are you using? Because while cornstarch is the most popular starch that's used, some still use wheat starch.
In America, what about here?
I have no idea what they use here, but from what I know, that's the most popular starch used. But you should ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. You make sure, because if your Pesach garment was starched with a wheat starch, that means you're wearing chametz. Now, we're still not a problem. I'm not eating chametz. I'm just wearing chametz. It's still not such a big problem. The only problem is that what happens if you're sitting down for a meal and you stretch your arm to pass down the potato salad, and all of a sudden you don't see it, but in the invisible air, a whole bunch of flour just went straight into it. So that's what it's brought down. It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, in chapter 442. It's starting 30 days beforehand. One should avoid ironing the clothing with wheat starch.
If it was done,
If it was done, you can wear the clothing, but not while you eat. So take it off for eating and wash your hands beforehand.
your surtuk, you take off.
Yeah, if you got your surtuk starch with a wheat starch, don't wear it while you eat. Absolutely. Or your shirt or anything else.
With shirt.
Back in the day, it was very common to iron women's scarves with wheat starch. So that's what the Poskim discussed, that they weren't allowed to bring it to the Pesach table, the wheat-flavored scarves.
It's over 30 days old.
If it's over 30 days, we consider it that it's like it's been destroyed.
We're talking about a tichel.
1 second.
What about hairsprays on hair?
Okay, no, here I wrote that even if it was done within 30 days prior, but it was a wheat starch, the chatchila, you should not eat with it by the table. Okay? So, even if it was done for 30 days, yes. Okay, b'dikas chametz, another halacha applicable to the 30-day period. So if anyone here does not plan on staying in their home for Pesach, you plan on leaving, so the halacha is that since, as I already said, we're within the 30-day period, for some purposes, Pesach has already begun in essence. And one of those purposes regarding b'dikas chametz, the halacha is that if you were in your property within 30 days before Pesach, even if a guy just wanted to come to Israel for Purim and he's leaving right after Purim, he was leaving within 30 days now. So he enters into this halacha, which is, thou shalt not leave their home until they first do a full-on b'dikas chametz. Everything. So, clean, bedika, get rid of all the chametz. Now, today that we have what's called mechiras chametz, that is created for us today a circumventing road to avoid all the hassle, and that is to simply include the apartment here in Israel. Or let's say it's the opposite, let's say I was in America, right? To include that apartment in the sale, and when I include it in the sale, it's sold to a guy, I don't have to b'dikas chametz because it's not mine.
Okay, so to be clear, I'm going to leave before Pesach. Make a valid sale before.
In the earliest time zone. Through the rabbi in the earliest time zone, whether here or wherever you're going.
lock the door.
Well, that's, you should do always.
Yeah, nobody else has access
Right.
during the time
Right.
period you're away.
Right.
Do not return before Pesach
Exactly.
is over.
Exactly.
You're covered,
You're covered because,
don't need to do
right,
bedikat.
right. It's not yours. I
So
mean,
don't
it's
need-
not yours. That's the whole idea. It's the guy's. The same way I don't have to go to some guy's house and clean his house for chametz. If I would even like, what are you doing? You know, I don't have to go into this house that will belong to the guy before Pesach starts until Pesach is over. So therefore, I do not have to clean it. And one second, the same would apply if, let's say, I have a home in another country and I was not in the home within 30 days. Even in that case, you would have to include it in the sale, and if you don't, you would have to actually travel there before Pesach and clean it yourself, if you know for a fact that it contains chametz. So if I know for sure, I have a cupboard, in my summer home in the Catskills, I have a cupboard full of cereals, you know, all these different mezainis cereals, then in such a case, if it doesn't do with the 30 days, you know for a fact you have chametz there, you have an absolute obligation to get rid of it even before 30 days. The chiyuv of 30 days is that even if you don't know for sure, and you cleaned your home, and then we say, then within 30 days, then that's when you would have to nonetheless do a bedika, full-on bedika, to all places, just like anywhere else.
If you sell it, you're selling the.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. I said today that we have the sale availability, so we basically circumvent. This is a huge chapter in Shulchan Aruch, in chapter Taf Lamed Vav, which today we pretty much circumvent because of the Mechiras Chametz ability, and we just include all the apartments or homes that we own in that sale, so we actually only clean wherever we'll be staying for Pesach in actuality.
Chabad is much more lenient in the sale of
Not just Chabad.
They have to
Not just
control
Chabad.
it. You can't sell real chametz.
Not just Chabad. Anyways,
We're the
yeah.
most lenient, I guess, in this respect.
No, many people are lenient like us, not just Chabad. Yeah. Any questions on this, on the traveling B'dikas Chametz?
I remember Rabbi Yazid would have a significant selection of keys.
All right. So the keys is discussed in our section of Mechiras Chametz, and B'Payil, we're not naig anymore to give the keys, even though back in the day it was an obligation as part of the kinyanim and access for the Chametz. But nonetheless, that's not the minig anymore. We have a few keys a person can give if he wants, especially if store owners, they give keys. But a regular person, it's not naig. The Rebbe someone once wrote to the Rebbe that people, I don't see Rabbanim taking keys for the Mechiras Chametz, and if so, all the Mechiras Chametz is invalid. So the Rebbe wrote to him, "Good morning, America. It's been going on for 150 years already. Where have you been? You know, have you missed all the tshuvas that have discussed the reason why we no longer give the
The
keys?"
Rebbe wrote,
Yeah, I'm being a little more sarcastic, but the Rebbe did write it to that. That was the message, that this has been being done already. I'm surprised at your question. You know, good morning, America. It's like someone waking up tomorrow. How come we didn't bring the Current Pesach, you know, this year? You know, everything's sprayed. There's no temple. You know. Anyways, so,
I'm a little confused. If you can sell the chametz,
yes.
then why do you even have to really search?
Oh, so that you're not confused. You're asking a very good question, which is a very bothersome question. And to paraphrase your question, it is okay. So let's just in our own home, let's just sell our chametz and stay in the home. It's not mine. It's the guy's. So it's a very good question. I discussed it. I have a huge footnote here in the book that I discussed that question in, and I don't have a very satisfying answer, to be honest. But nonetheless, I'll tell you a few problems with doing that. Number one is that even if you sell your chametz, the sages do not allow you to have a guy's chametz just lying around everywhere freely. You have to gather it. We discussed this on Sunday. Yeah, we discussed this on Sunday. You have to have it behind the mechitza, you have to put it in the cupboard. So you can't just allow the chametz to be everywhere. So but it's still, you're correct. You're actually, in this case, searching for the guy's chametz and not your chametz. It's weird.
Well, it's not the guy's chametz, it's
Oh,
yourself.
very good, very good. So another point is, the second point is that the sale doesn't actually take place until the day of Yudalid. So the night of Yudalid, when I'm doing B'dikas Chametz, it's all mine. Everything is mine. So Mechiras Chametz is an additional insurance policy. But no one jumps on the insurance policy lechatchila unless they're trying to do criminal activity and doing insurance fraud. But nobody wants to get sick so they can get the insurance money, God forbid. Right? Exactly. It's an insurance policy. So therefore, we do everything we need to do. But because of what you're mentioning, it's very important that there are some people who are machmir to do what's called a Yud Gimel sale. They do a sale on the 13th, not on the 14th. because of different issues. But the issue with that is that if they go ahead and do that on the 13th, like let's say in a case where you're selling, you want to sell your apartment, they say you can only get out of Bdikas Chametz, meaning the circumventing road I just said before, just sell it and you get out of the 30-day rule, or the general rule if you have Chametz or you have to get rid of it. They say it only works if the sale takes place before the night of Bdika, because once night of Bdika reaches, you haven't yet sold it, you have an obligation, they say. So they say you have to sell it then the 13th. The problem with that is if you sold it the 13th, then by the time that you do Bdikas Chametz in your home, because you still have a home you're doing Bdikas Chametz to properly, it's not yours anymore. So how can you say, I'll beer Chametz of the guy? You're going to say, I'll beer Chametz, I'm destroying a guy's Chametz. So this is the problem on the other side, when there's someone who's machmir. So then they...
Before you do the sale.
I said there's people who are machmir that do the sale before the Bdika.
Why do they do a thing like that?
I said before, because they hold, like the Chai Adam and other machmir opinions, we don't hold that way, but they do. Tzemach Tzedek was makel in this, that if you sell your chametz on the day of the 14th, it doesn't remove from you the obligation of checking all your property the night of the 14th, because you still owned it. So they would say that no, if you're doing a regular mechiras chametz, you have to travel to the Catskills, to your home, and get rid of all those cereal boxes. But I'm selling it the next day. Doesn't matter. Now there's a chiyuv b'dika. Now you got to do it. It's still yours. So what do? They sell it the day before. So what do you do in the situation? You would have to specify, well, I'm selling my New York home, on the 13th, and my Israeli home, I'm only selling on the 14th by day.
Getting the keys. If you're selling a house or apartment that you're not going to be in, do you have to specify where the keys are? And that you have
The minhag is regarding the keys is that we're no longer makbid neither A, to give over the keys, or B, to explicitly explain to them how to get access to the keys. We don't do that. It's not protocol. But what's understood is that the guy, today it's very easy to reach people. It's not that difficult to reach people. There's phones, there's emails, and he will be able to reach us, and we will have an obligation of giving him the keys. Now, if in truth he demands from us the key, and we say, no way, Jose, this whole thing was, it's just a mechiras chametz, it's not real, then we enter a big halachic problem if we refuse. But assuming we will not refuse, which we should not refuse if it does happen, and we tell him, the keys, I left the key for you, under the mat in front of the door, you can go in, help yourself, but don't forget there's a bill to pay for everything you eat, everything you consume. It's full market price that you're going to be paying for, including the dirty pretzels you're going to take from under the, you're going to have to pay for everything. But then that's fine. That's what a mechira is. That's a real mechira. Okay? Back in the day, I'll just explain this point a little more. Mechiras chametz wasn't done in like a universal or a global or like a public manner. It was very private. One person, a company owner, went over to a guy he knew and did mechiras chametz one-on-one. And the Rav maybe helped him, gave him a shtar, helped facilitate whatever it was. But it was one-on-one. And in that case, if he did not give the keys to the guy, what is it really showing him? It's showing the guy that this guy is baloney. He's doing a religious ritual. He's not doing a legal business sale. However, today, if all of the 10,000 residents of Tzfas gave the Rav of Tzfas the 10,000 keys, and he gave it, you wouldn't have no guy who's willing to do the job of buying the chametz when he has to pay, workers to carry all the keys and then sort them out and give them back. It would be the most insane job possible, and obviously, therefore, so he's Michael, he understands. So it doesn't pose an issue. Okay, avoiding matzah.
We should also do the sale to a Chabad rabbi, is that?
Yes, because of the Erev Kabbalah, absolutely. It doesn't matter if he's a Chabad rabbi or not. It has to be done. It should l'chatchila be done through the Alter Rebbe's method, which is using an Erev Kabbalah. And I assume that every
no problem about finding a Chabad rabbi in Tzfat.
or anywhere, because you can do it today through anyone you want. You can do it anywhere. We can do it anywhere on the eastern part of the world or Israel. We're limited in doing it from Egypt and onwards, but we can do it from here until Australia. Anyone you want, as long as it uses an Erev Kabbalah.
What is it called, the Erev?
Erev Kabbalah. It's a certain. It's discussed here, and I'll discuss in length. It's a Jewish guarantor. It's a specific way that Lubavitch does it. Also, the Charedis does it, and other people are makbid to do to help one of the kinyanim. Okay, but lechatchila, that's what we should try, how we should try to have it done. Avoiding matzah, so another interesting minhag, not halacha, but minhag that many people keep, especially, and that's also the Lubavitch custom, is that we avoid eating the matzah starting 30 days before Pesach. That means starting from this past Purim, we abstain from eating matzah until the Seder night. This minhag is also recorded in the Igros Moshe. Moshe Feinstein records this minhag. It's not just a Chabad custom, it's a general custom, and as he explains that the reason is because since the Pesach spirit and for some instances the Pesach laws begin to apply 30 days beforehand, and we know the Talmud states and brought down as a Halach and Shulchan Aruch chapter 471 that you're not allowed to eat matzah starting from the morning of Erev Pesach. So since in a certain sense 30 days is already like the eve of Pesach, so we stop eating 30 days before. So we have a real desire for matzah. And you really, psychologically, it's really interesting because you never start feeding for matzah until like after Purim, and then you're like, oh, I can't eat it. You know, how come like the day before Purim I didn't think about matzah and want to eat it? And after Purim, suddenly you think about it.
Chometz matzah.
No, matzah, real matzah.
No, I'm talking about
Chametz matzah you can eat.
most, during the whole year.
Crackers that are chametz that
No, I'm
look like
talking about
matzah.
Matzah, they say it's
Oh, so let's get to that. So what matzah is included in this abstainment? And that is as follows. Any matzah that you can possibly, and focus on my word possibly, be yotze with the night of the Seder, that's the matzah you have to avoid. So what would be included in this? What would be included is machine-made matzah, non-machine-made matzah. They're both possibly, you can be yotze of the night of Pesach with them, even though there's big discussion on machine matzah. Nonetheless, we don't negate the possibility of its validity, and therefore you cannot, based on the custom, we avoid eating it starting a month
if it says on the
beforehand.
package, not
So
Pesach
I'm going to
use.
get to it. Another example would be matzahs kfus and because you may have bakeries that all the blemished matzahs that have blow-ups, that have those bubbles, or that are bended, folded over, they just sold to you for really cheap. Can I eat them before Pesach? The answer is no, you can't, because it's still possible they're kosher and you can be yotze the night of the 14th. So based on the custom, we avoid eating it. So to Erev Pesach, all Jews would be forbidden from eating this matzah. Another example would be chametz matzahs that's sold in boxes.
Egg matzah.
I'll get to egg matzah in a moment, but here I'm talking about non-egg matzah, not matzah shira, what he's referring to, but it's not for Pesach use, it's called chametz matzah. So the truth is that is not chametz mahadrin. It's not guaranteed chametz. The reason why they call it chametz is they don't want liability of somebody using it on Pesach, because maybe it's chametz, maybe it's not chametz. Do they guarantee that they have a mashgiach sitting there making sure that it's chametz? They don't. So maybe it's not chametz. There's a chance it's not chametz, and you could be yotze with it. If so, then we avoid eating it. So that's the issue with chametz matzah. But if they have a special hechsher, guaranteed chametz matzah, then it actually enters a machlekes amongst today's poskim. Some say that since it still looks like matzah and tastes like matzah, therefore you should avoid it. Others say no, but it's really chametz. It's okay. That's a discussion. Tachlis is that when we're going to have in 2 years from now, when Pesach falls on Erev Shabbos and Pesach falls on Motzei Shabbos. And Shabbos, we have a problem what to eat. We do not give the eitzon. It is not done anywhere that I know of, including in the Army Rabbanut, which is like the most lenient of lenient if it could be. We do not give chametz matzah. Okay, nobody gives chametz matzah. Regarding gebrachs, what they do give is they give what's called matzah that was baked leila shema. Matzah is baked specifically leila shema, anyways. But not chametz matzah. It's kosher matzah, but leila shema. Okay, gebrachs. So gebrachs is not a problem because you can't be yotze if a person had 3 knedlach that were mamish, 60, 70 grams altogether, the 3 knedlach in his chicken soup, made from matzah meal. He ate 70 grams of matzah, and they were so delicious, he gobbled them up in 4 minutes, all 3 of them. So he ate he ate the double amount. He ate a kabetz, a shir chazanishi already. He ate of matzah the night of Pesach. He did not fulfill his obligation. The reason is because matzah is only kosher if it's dry, if it's cooked. Sorry, it's not the issue of being dry. It's the issue of being not cooked in liquid. If it's cooked in liquid, it becomes pasul for the mitzvah. So that's why you could have matzah ball soup up until Erev Pesach. Yes. You can also make matzah brai, where you're frying the matzah. If the matzah is fried with a nice amount of oil to the point that it changes its taste, that's also mutter, and that's based on matzah shira. Matzah shira, you're not yotze with the night of Pesach. It's not chametz, but you're not yotze with this matzah the night of Pesach. Egg, manashevetz matzah, you're not yotze with the night of Pesach. And therefore, you are allowed to eat it within the 30 days without a problem. And even Erev Pesach, before the 5th hour of the day, before the 4th hour of the day, you can eat egg matzah, Ashkenazim. We can eat egg matzah, it's not a problem.
So on that situation, next year, the year after, where you have.
So yes, many people, I think that's what we did when it last happened. We used egg matzah on that Shabbos.
on that Shabbos. And then you would you call it motzi?
We ate before Chatzos, we ate,
You were with us?
Small pita.
not, I don't know if I was eating, not, we ate on a, and then,
I'm saying what I believe I did. I don't know. I'm not saying what anyone else did. I have no idea. I barely know what I did. I think if I remember correctly, is that maybe we had also some chametz, like a few challahs, but like very few. I think we gave out egg matzahs to like the kids, or maybe even myself. It's pretty tasty, and there's no problem. You're allowed to eat egg matzah on Erev. If you're not yotze with it, if you're not yotze with it, then now we don't eat egg matzah on Pesach or past the 4th hour of the day. That's Ashkenazi minhag. We don't do 100%.
Oh, okay.
But I'm talking about before the 4th hour. I'm talking about Erev Pesach, before the 4th hour of the day, before Seif Zman Achilas Chametz. Let me put it this way. If I can have bread, certainly I can have egg matzah, right?
So that wouldn't solve the issue of what.
Well, it
needs
solves the
meal.
issue of I don't want to have chametz around my house. So it solves the issue where I don't feel good giving out bread to my children and having it get all over this freshly cleaned house for Pesach, and I have no way of controlling it. No vacuum, no nothing. You know, it's Shabbos. Can't do anything. So the best idea is give them egg matzah, and the adults will have some challahs, but the kids will all have egg matzahs. Okay, and that's not chametz. Even though we don't eat matzah shir, we don't say it's chametz.
and then you put, then any crumbs or whatever are left over, you,
Of matzah shira?
of regular, of bread.
Of bread, yeah, we'll discuss it. I know the anxiety is already starting, but we'll discuss. We have 2 years to discuss it.
So
We'll,
is motzi shira,
that year.
would you have to say the motzi? For motzi shira?
If you're eating in a certain amount, yes. Okay, there's more questions relating to this, but I think this suffices of what we need to know for now. If you have more questions on the matzah custom, we can discuss that privately, or you can just look at the book. Okay, other things that we begin doing, as I said, during the 30-day period. It's not specifically during 30 days, but just pre-Pesach chores as it goes. And that is, number one, is the Rebbe spoke about the importance of the children and the Seder participants, whoever they may be, to have beautiful Haggadahs with lots of pictures, and interesting, depictions inside, not the boring Haggadahs that, just the words, the Hebrew words, and then they'll get distracted because they can't pay attention. So that's a kids-friendly Haggadah. And I don't suggest getting like a $10,000 Haggadah and bringing it to your Seder table with all the paintings. It's not a very good idea. You probably have it everywhere but the Seder table.
Agam has a Haggadah for 4,000.
Who is that?
Agam Haggadah.
Agam?
Agam, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
4,006.
Yeah, I think the book that was most published, maybe except for the Tanakh, is the Haggadah, the Jewish Haggadah.
Really?
There are like thousands of publications. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about if you measure from 1,000 years ago till now. I think it's the most published book that was ever published in history.
More versions of it.
Yeah, the versions.
The
Yeah.
Haggadah that we used was revised by the Alter Rebbe, is correct?
That in Chabad, yes.
That was like,
The original Haggadah is from the Mishnah Pesachim. That's the original Haggadah. Yeah, but yeah, the Alter Rebbe did revise it. Okay. Of course, it's just like a siddur. It has brachos, it has blessings, it has inside of it mishnayos, it has psukim. Sure, it's a holy book, absolutely. Okay, buying Pesach vessels. So we'll discuss a little bit here about buying Pesach kalim, and that is that it's brought on a few things. Number one, it's recorded in the Shulchan Aruch that a person should specifically bring out his most beautiful vessels the night of Pesach. So the idea of having a very bare table and not have anything on it is strange. According to halacha, and that was always the custom, was to have a very much adorned table. In fact, the Alter Rebbe even brings that he says you can actually take down your chametz vessels and have it clean, no chametz on them, but used for chametz, and have them on the table due to their beauty, just to signify the beauty of Pesach. But certainly our Pesach vessels that are beautiful should be on the table. We shouldn't worry, well, we don't want it to get wet, we don't want it to get dirty. No, we're supposed to beautify. It's a famous story with Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polonia that told us Yaakov Yosef of how he had all this beautiful kalim on the table, and he was in the middle of dveikus of his night of the Seder, and of course, so his eyes were closed, and he was already much older, and he's sitting in a state of dveikus, doesn't lock the door because it's night of the Seder, no one locks the door, right? The door is left open, Eliyahu Hanavi, and in walked in 3 robbers, 3 soldiers who were in the town, and they started robbing everything. All of his most beautiful, expensive silver, cutlery and eating-ware, etc. And they started robbing everything, and they suddenly froze. They froze solid inside the house. No, they froze solid. They couldn't move. The commander started doing a roundup in the morning. 3 soldiers were missing. He sent the soldiers to look for them, and they see through the window 3 soldiers standing like statues inside of up on the end of his home, not moving.
Live?
Statues, not moving. So the commander saw this as strange. He knocked inside. He was very respectful, and he asked Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, what's going on. He says, "Oh, I didn't even notice. I didn't know." He came out of his.
It's cold outside?
And he said, most likely what happens, I see there's nothing on my table. They probably stole all my stuff and all my beautiful silver that I put out. And so long as you don't get rid of it from them, they won't be able to move. So they started emptying out all of their pockets. So 2 of them started moving, and they left. And the 3rd soldier was still stuck, couldn't move. So he said he put something inside of his shoe. So they undid his shoe, and they found a silver spoon there. And this whole Maisa is brought down that this commander later on, ended up becoming a governor of a certain region in Russia. And when there was a big machlekes in the town about the Todas Yaakov Yosef Sefer, about the publishing of it, and it's not even one allowed to be published, he asked them what is going on, and they told him, well, there's this Jewish book. He said, what's the name of the book? He said, this is the guy, this is the same guy. And he told them, who he was, and he was big tzaddik. In any event, so the point is that we are meant to put out our most beautiful vessels and purchase them for the night of the Seder.
What about
And
the Magi? The Alter Rebbe was by the Seder of the Magi, and
right,
they said it was chametz.
right.
but
He was
then
poor. He was poor. He didn't have. I'm talking about people who have
so
money.
He brought
The glass,
glass,
yeah.
and he took 3 days to put in water.
Right.
And, then,
Yeah.
and the Magi said
Right.
it schmeckt of
Right.
chametz.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's because he was going to use it.
but it
For
was just
why?
decoration.
Decoration. What's wrong
They
with
didn't have
decoration?
money for it.
There's no. I'll give you even a bigger chiddush. There's no issue to see actual chametz on Pesach. Not only can you see a vessel that you used to cook your pasta in it on Pesach, you can even see actual chametz on Pesach. It just can't be your chametz. There's no issue.
Glass cover.
Meaning that if someone spilled crackers all over the floor Erev Pesach in front of your house, you don't have to stay in your house for the next 7-8 days. You're allowed to walk out. You're allowed to see the chametz. It's not my chametz. I don't have any responsibility for it. It's not mine. There's no issur of seeing chametz. The issur is seeing chametz that you own. And so too regarding pots, so long as you put your pots away in a locked up area that you're not going to reach them, you're not going to come to use them. So even if you see them, it's not a problem. So let's see. No.
So if you have a vitrina and you have you see the things, it's okay.
Yeah, correct. But if it's like vessels that you use for like actual cooking chametz, then it should be locked up so you don't come to accidentally use it. But if it's just like,
If you put tape on the door?
Alter Rebbe says that you should move it to a secluded area, lock it, and hide the key. That's what he writes to do.
You don't have a keyhole.
Okay, so you do what you can. I'm just saying, do the best that you can. Do the best that you can. Okay, but let's say you have a chametz becher. Use a becher, you're not koshering it. So that you can leave. It's not real chametz. You don't cook chametz in there. So you can see it. It's not a problem. Just don't use it. We don't use it, but you can see it. It's okay to what? To buy unpeel? Right. Again, the issue is against, and this I guess we can learn a lesson of Vedas Hashem. We should be, the sensitivity should be to our own yeshus, our own gaiva, our own chametz that we own. That's what we're not allowed to see. But about someone else's, don't worry about somebody else's gaiva and yeshus. That's for them to work on. We need to work on our own. That's not an issue. Okay. So regarding, again, purchasing vessels, regarding if you should purchase vessels rather than kosher them, So some say it's better to kasher, some say no, the minig is, sorry, some say it's better to purchase new, and some say that, that no, the minig is to kasher, and you can kasher, and you should actually specifically kasher at least one thing to emphasize the halachas of agala. But unless whatever you choose to do, obviously buying everything new and having chametz vessel just makes everything a lot easier and simpler, and you don't have to deal with kashering and cleaning and worrying about all that. So definitely is a type of hiddur. Okay, other things to purchase we have here. So as is normally before a holiday, we purchase jewelry and clothing for the vibers, for the females of the family, and that is the wife and all of the adult girls. Okay, so jewelry and clothing, as before any one of the 3 holidays. Children, they get away just with sweets, like potato chips and other stuff that's used to buy for them. Children, yeah, children, they appreciate more candy and treats than they would,
All that unhealthy stuff.
yeah. So that's a reminder, that's within the time. What time? Speaking of time, okay, we're just going to do one more and we'll finish for today, because then we're up to Pesach complaints, and that's what will happen if I continue. So, number 5. Number 5 over here is, and this is pretty much going to cover our Nisan chapter for now, and we're going to move on next week. We're going to jump to, as I said, Pesach, kosher Pesach foods, kitnius, medicines, etc., etc. So, now that we're ready preparing for Pesach, we're making meat orders. I've mentioned this before. The halacha hasn't changed. There was no update in the law. The law is still the same, and the law will always remain the same. And the law is that we cannot say, it's forbidden to say, this meat is for Pesach. We got to get that lexicon, that wording out of our vocabulary. That meat is for Yantif, not that meat is for Pesach. You can't say that meat is for Pesach. Furthermore, lichatchila, you shouldn't say anything is for Pesach. Let's first get the halacha straight. The halacha is, don't say anything's for Pesach. Don't say the cutlery is for Pesach. Don't say the vegetables are for Pesach. Say it's for Yantif. But the main issue is with meat, and within meat, the main issue is lamb. The reason is because of the carbon Pesach. Because when you say Beis Hamikdash is going to come back, and I say, and let's say Beis Hamikdash is now built, we have all these people here in Tzfas who come to shul, to daven Ma'ariv, they were just resurrected, it's the first time back, and they heard someone saying on the phone, oh, can I order, bring me the vegetables and the fruits for Pesach? Says, wow, that's always, where are you buying your carbon Pesach from this year? Pesach means carbon Pesach. They don't understand Pesach as a holiday, as a yantin. They understand Pesach as carbon Pesach. That's how it's referred to in the Torah. That's how it's referred to in Chazal. Pesach is the carbon. So because of that, people, when we use the term, this is for Pesach, it's as if we're making it hektish for the carbon Pesach. So if they see us eating the vegetables that we said we ordered for Pesach, what are you doing? You're eating hektish. You makdish this for the carbon Pesach. How can you eat the vegetables? So because of this, we avoid. That's Allah. We avoid saying it at all. But b'di'evid, everything's okay if you already said it. Nothing happened with except to lamb. If a person ordered lamb and he said, can you please pass me the lamb for Pesach? Then the good news is he said nothing wrong, because he can't have it anymore for Pesach. So, that's what he actually did, because with a real... No, he can have it after Pesach. That's the good news, or before Pesach, but he can't have it now for Pesach. He cannot eat it, because then maybe it's considered like the current Pesach, and what's actually brought down is that he has to sell it. He should sell it to somebody else in case of great loss. So with lamb, it's a very big problem. But just the main thing is to get used to, even when you're writing a list, you should write a Yom Tif list. No, even Chag, Korban Chagiga, you're getting into more trouble. Just avoid Pesach. Avoid Pesach. Sure, you can eat lamb. There's no problem eating lamb. Even in United States, you can eat cooked lamb. There's only problem with eating roasted. And that has nothing to do with lamb. It's even roasted meat. Okay, and roasted chicken we don't eat in the United States. But here it's more the issue of the statement. So we just avoid saying this is for Pesach on everything.
Chicken have to be kosher for Pesach? What? Does chicken have to be kosher for Pesach?
Okay, 1 second. A correction of what I said before. If a person said that first of all, it's on 2 things, on a goat or sheep. I said sheep because lamb is more common. I haven't really seen goat meat being sold, but if it is, then goat would be included, because that's also a carbon Pesach. Goat, so that's number 1. And number 2, I said before, you could eat it before Pesach or after Pesach. The answer is no. He can't eat it at all, this person, ever. Relatively rights, ever. He has to sell it. not only on Pesach for sure you can't eat at all, not before, not after. It becomes also, it's like kachim, you can't eat kachim, so even if you're a kohen.
So how can you still cook?
Right, because it's not really kachim. So in the case of great law, it said you can sell. Okay, so your question is regarding this chicken eater sauce. That's really we're going to talk about in our in the next class. But the answer is, if you don't know already now, so anything that doesn't have any worry of infiltration of chametz does not need a hashgacha for Pesach. And you know, if for example, I don't need to buy apples with a kosher Pesach hashgacha, because what is the worry of infiltration? None. I'm going to wash it, peel it, whatever it is. There's no worry. So regarding chicken, chicken is chicken. Chicken is not chametz, and chametz is not chicken. There are two different things. And when you buy chicken, usually it doesn't come stuffed with rice and other stuff. It's just raw. The bird, the actual bird that once flew or tried to fly, etc. That's all it is. So it doesn't need hashgacha for Pesach at all. And in fact, what the hashgacha companies do, they start doing a line of kosher for Pesach like months before Pesach, about 3-4 months before Pesach. The Schlacht houses. And all the difference is just a sticker, that's all. It's a new sticker, a different sticker.
You don't be makpid on what they feed these animals?
No, that's only certain hashgachas, and it's relatively new, and it's only certain hashgachas that do it, relatively new, and only a few days or a few weeks before Pesach. Yes, and that's because, I'll tell you why they do that. That's not because that kiviyachal people mistakenly think as if the meat of the cow or the meat of the chicken, since it grew from the chametz, it's chametz. That's absolute nonsense. That's insanity. That there's no room in halacha for such a suspicion. Then we can't eat anything because you know how many bugs the cows eat? I look at the cows every morning how many bugs they're eating. So we can't eat meat because we're eating bugs. It's ridiculous. What the chashash is that, number one, the main chashash is that there may be kernels stuck in the zefek, in the trachea, okay, in the esophagus, sorry, and that can get into the food. So that's really the main reason why they do it. That's why they all clean it out. And with the cows, the reason why they do it is because since on Pesach there definitely is a chumrah that our milk or meat shouldn't be derived from chametz that they ate on Pesach. There is such a chumrah. So therefore, already a few days before Pesach, they get used to feeding them. They clean everything out. They get used to feeding them non-chametz. Okay.
But it's not a...
It's a hiddur. It's not a chiyuv. Yes.
We found another problem though is that if you're getting your food from a butcher, okay, one of the things that they do is they go out and they do a Pesach cleaning on the whole store, and then from that point on, then the meat is kosher for Pesach, because the store has chametz in it.
I understand that that's how, policy-wise, how they do it, but halachically-wise, nothing that store will or won't do will turn that piece of meat from Pesach to non-Pesach tik, because I don't even care if the guy used a chametz stick knife. First of all, most butchers, and especially schlacht houses, the knives are all they're parv, they're cold, they cut cold meat, they don't cut anything else, that's all they cut. So they've never come into touch with chametz before. And number two, even if they did, all I have to do is wash the meat to avoid that problem, which I will do regardless. I will wash my raw meat before I cook it. So there's really no issue with meat, even if it doesn't say, by one, your meat doesn't say kosher for Pesach, if it's not processed, it's literally like the actual chicken or like a piece of the cow, just wash it and you're good.
Same thing with the fish.
Same thing with fish, yes.
They have like a little sticker,
Again, the sticker is not what makes it kosher or not kosher. The sticker is just revelation. It's the revelation. Cheese needs to have a hashgacha, just in case maybe some ingredients we're using, maybe some.
Do you mind bringing a book on Sunday?
Now, those of us who will be here Sunday, how are you juggling the difference between what you're offering, what you're...
What I'm teaching?
Yeah.
Different subjects. We're starting all the laws of B'dikas Chametz. Yes, B'dikas Chametz, cleaning for Chametz. We're not doing them.
You're not doing that. People want to learn about the church, they have to come to Sunday.
Yes.
Or watch on Sunday. Or watch on Sunday.
Are you taking him home?